Today we are starting a series of lectures on hematology, right? And we'll start with the red blood cells, especially the most common investigations which are done in cases of anemias or polycythemias, right? So let's start discussing about red blood cells and related investigations. The important terms which you are supposed to know, right? The important terms, medical terms which you are supposed to know are: number one, you should know what is meant by packed cell volume, or it is also called hematocrit. Hematocrit. You should be clear what it is after the lecture. Number two, you must know what is the concept of hemoglobin concentration. Hemoglobin concentration. Number three, you must be clear about red cell count, right? After the lectures, you must be clear in all these terms which I am writing there. Then you must be knowing what is meant by, yes, you must be knowing what is meant by mean corpuscular volume. Mean corpuscular volume. Okay. Someone is so intelligent, he told that it should be called MCV, mean corpuscular volume. Then you must be also clear about mean corpuscular, yes, very good, hemoglobin, which can also be called MCH, mean corpuscular hemoglobin. Then by the end of the lecture, we should have very clear concept what is meant by mean corpuscular, yes, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. Right, and then we will, that is of course mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, MCHC, right? And then another term which is used now these days, that is, yes, there is one term, you will tell me what is RWD. Yes. Okay, RDW. Yes, RDW. What is this? Anyone who knows about it? Never heard of it? Red cell distributive width. I will explain it later what is really meant by that and what is the importance of this term. Red cell, yes, distributive width. Right, so how many of you are clear about all these terms? Raise your hands. I should remind everyone has two hands. You can raise only one. Anyone who is clear about all these terms? Okay, someone who is sure about first 6 terms. Anyone? Yes, there are a lot of young doctors. You know what are the differences in these terms? What are the importance of them? Because still when we'll be moving forward, there will be more terms which will be made clear to you. For example, by the end of the lecture, you must be clear about what is meant by microcytic, yes, microcytic corpuscles or red blood cells, microcytic cells, then yes, normocytic cells, then there should be, you should be clear about, yes, macrocytic, very good, macrocytic red blood cells, and then you should be also clear what is meant by normochromic, yes, normochromic cells, hypochromic cells, red blood cells and yes, hyperchromic. I think if after the lecture you are really clear about these 13 terms, I think we have done the job of today, right? So let's start here discussing, and during this discussion I will explain every term, right? Let's suppose we take a blood from a person, from his vein, and we put into this tube. Let's start studying this situation. Suppose this is a container, and in this container we take blood from a person and we put blood into this container, right? Suppose blood is up to this. We anticoagulate the blood. We anticoagulate the blood so that blood does not coagulate, right? We anticoagulate the blood and then centrifuge it. So naturally what will happen? If blood is anticoagulated and put into a tube and then there is centrifugation, it is rotated, naturally cells will come down and plasma will remain up. Good, you know these things. Excelente. So what happens? The cells will settle down. So once you have centrifuged, let's suppose it was 1 unit blood, right? After the centrifugation, when you let the cells settle down in a healthy person, this is the area or volume which is occupied by the cells, and area which is above that is occupied by cell-free, yes, plasma. Is that right? Now these are the cells. This all is mostly red blood cell. There are some cells here, we call it buffy coat. This is actually a very thin layer which is made by white blood cells, right? And above that, all this is, yes, all this is plasma. We start our concept from very basic. You have taken a blood from a person, anticoagulated the blood, put into a tube, centrifuged it. You have reduced a cell to the bottom and plasma is at the top. Is that right? Now, let us suppose if this was 1 unit blood, as you know, blood is made of what? It is having plasma in the cells. So naturally, cells are less than 1 unit. Usually in a healthy person, about 40 to 50% are cells. 40 to 50% of the volume of the blood is occupied by cells, and they are mostly red blood cells. Is that right? So we can say that this, out of this 1 unit, all this is present here. Let us suppose it is 0.45. 1 unit was like this. It was 1 unit volume. Out of that 1 unit volume, 0.45 is occupied by red blood cells when they are packed together. When they are packed together. Then we can say 0.45 is the volume occupied by the red blood cells when they are packed within the blood. Let me repeat it. What I'm saying, that let's suppose, okay, let's make it 1 liter. If this is 1 liter blood, don't remove 1 liter from anyone. It's just an example. 1 liter blood, you centrifuge and settle the cells. Out of 1 liter, how much will be occupied by red blood cell? In this diagram, out of 1 liter, it is 450 mLs. Or we can say 45% of the total volume of the blood. Right? So what we can say, or we can say that total volume of the blood which is occupied by red blood cells once they are packed together, right? This packed together, this is 0.45 liter of the cells per liter of the blood. That in 1 liter of the blood, 0.45 liter is the packed volume of red blood cells. When red cells are packed, this is very important. I'm repeating again when they are packed. So what is this? Packed volume of red blood cells. Is that right? Now, this is 0.45. Simply when liter by liter, or we simply say 0.45. Even you can put, if it is 1 ml, then you will say ml by ml. That in 1 ml, 0.45 ml is the volume occupied by the red blood cells when they are packed together. So this volume is called packed cell volume. What is this? Packed cell volume. For next time, when someone say what is packed cell volume, PCV, he is talking about the volume in the blood occupied by the red blood cells when red blood cells are packed together. Is it difficult? It's so easy. Packed cell volume. Is that right? Okay, thank you for understanding that. Now, some people don't want to call it like, there are always lazy people. They don't want to call it 3-word, packed cell volume. So they introduced a different term for the same concept. And our young doctor gets confused. The other term for the same thing is hematocrit. Packed cell volume is actually the other name for hematocrit. So what is hematocrit? If I say my friend has hematocrit 0.4, it means in his blood 40% of the volume is occupied by red blood cell. If I say there is a person who has very severe anemia, I say his hematocrit is 0.3. If I say my friend has, we take a blood sample from a patient and report come, hematocrit is 0.3. You can understand very clearly that in this person's blood, out of 1 unit, 30% of the volume of the blood is occupied by the red blood cells when they are packed together. That's it. So I hope you are clear about these terms. Okay, thank you for understanding it. Now, I will make it a little more clear because I want to talk about other terms also. So let's suppose I make the container here again. Let's suppose that here is packed cell volume. Okay, this was our total blood volume, right? We decided that packed cell volume in our patient was, yes, 0.45 liter per liter. Is that right? And this was made of mainly by which cells? Red blood cells. Let's suppose I'm putting the red blood cells here. I'm just putting few red blood cells here. Now I've made only 5 red blood cells in this diagram, right? Actually there are not 5 red blood cells, there are a lot of red blood cells. But these 5 red blood cells in our diagram are representing all the red blood cells. Of course, packed cell volume consists of what? Consists of red blood cells. Now, when we talk about that this is our packed cell volume, within this volume we can talk about other things. Because packed cell volume only tell us that out of the full unit of the blood, 45% is occupied by red blood cells. But someone can come and ask, okay, this is the volume occupied by all the red blood cells. But what is the number of red blood cells? Because there are many red blood cells which are put together and then this volume is occupied. So it means we need one more term. That in a given patient, number one, we should know what is the hematocrit. Hematocrit means packed cell volume. Plus, you can also ask what is the red cell count. Red cell count means that in 1 unit of blood, what is the number of RBCs? And of course, in 1 unit of the blood, whatever is the number of RBCs, they are put together making a volume which is called packed cell volume. Or we can reverse the statement that within the packed cell volume, we should know what is the number of RBCs. Is that right? Now first normal, let's suppose our person is normal. In a normal person, in 1 ml of blood, let's suppose this is 1 ml of blood. In 1 ml of blood, how much is the packed cell volume? 0.45. Is that right? Of course, 0.45 ml. If we are not talking about liters, now we are talking about unit of 1 milliliter. But how? In 1 ml, in 1 drop of blood which is just 1 ml, what is the number of red blood cells? Yes, my friend. You never had time to count it. Yes. Anyone? I'm asking, if you take 1 ml blood from me, if I'm healthy, out of that 1 ml blood, 0.45 ml will be packed cell volume. In that 0.45 ml of the blood, how many number of RBCs are usually packed together in a healthy person? You don't know it. Yes. 5,000 to 6,000 to 10,000. Believe me, everyone who has such a number of RBCs in 1 ml of blood will never take this lecture because he will be dead.
4.5.
Even person who has only 5,000 to 10,000 red blood cell in his blood will never come to your attention. His report will never come. He must be already dead. Yes.
4.5.
Yeah, millions he is talking about. You are very right. As far as red blood cells are concerned, you are a millionaire. In every 1 ml of blood, in every 1 ml of the blood, you have approximately 5 million RBCs. In 1 ml of the blood, there are approximately 5 million red blood cells. Of course, male have a little more and female have a little less. We'll talk about those variations later. First, I'm putting a basic general concept. So, it means when we are talking about red cell count, when we are talking about red cell count, what we are trying to talk? We are talking in a given volume, what is the number of red blood cells, and we just discussed in a healthy person in 1 ml of the blood, there are approximately 5 million red blood cells. So, in a way, red cell count is the number of red blood cells in a unit volume of blood. Is that right? So now, if we continue our discussion with this thing, let's suppose a very small tube and this is total, okay, how much you want? 1 ml, 100 ml, 1 liter tube. I'll leave it up to you. 1 liter. Who wants 1 liter? It's not Coca-Cola. My friend, it's blood. Don't draw it more than 100 ml here. Okay. Let's suppose this unit is 100 ml. Now again I will just see you have developed the concept or not. If it is 100 ml blood from a normal person, how many mLs will be the packed cell volume? Approximately? Listen carefully. If this is 100 ml blood from me, in 100 ml of my blood, RBCs will occupy how much volume? 45 mL. Now I'm talking about volume, not number. This is what I want to put in your mind. These two terms are different. Is that right? So, and in this one, I told you in 1 ml of the blood, how many you have RBCs? 5 millions in 1 ml. And in 100 ml you will have 500 millions. Good, your math is good, right? So, it means in this case, if it is 100 ml blood, 45 ml is the packed cell volume or hematocrit. Is that right? 0.45 liter per liter. And what will be the red cell count? What will be the red cell count? In 1 ml it is 5 millions. In 1 ml. It is 5 million? I'm not good in math. Okay, thank you. So it's 5 million. It is in 1 ml. 100 ml into 100. So now you understand there is a difference of the concept of packed cell volume or hematocrit, and there is a different concept of red cell count. Why it is so important to understand? Listen carefully. Sometimes what happens? A person has very low packed cell volume. Suppose someone is severely anemic, his packed cell volume may be very low. Let's suppose this was me normal, there is another person, my friend, and unfortunately he has anemia, and still I have one more friend, unfortunately that person also has anemia. Now, when we took 100 ml blood from both of them, the packed cell volume was only 25.25, and here it is also 0.25. It means their total red cell mass is reduced. Rather than 45% in the blood, their red cell mass is, or red cell packed cell volume is only 25. Is that right? But look, if I say this person has larger RBCs, very large size RBCs, and this person has very small RBCs. When RBCs are larger than normal, we call them macrocytic, macrocyte. When RBCs are significantly larger than normal, we call them macrocytes. And when RBCs are smaller than normal, we call them microcyte. Now look, this is a very important concept. These two people, both of them have anemia, but one has an anemia with macrocyte, other has anemia with microcyte, and if both of them have equal packed cell volume, do you think red blood cell number can be equal? No. You are intelligent, isn't it? There are two people, both of them have severe anemia, both of them have very reduced but equal packed cell volume. Packed cell volume is equal on both sides, but one has larger RBCs, other has smaller RBCs. So it means RBCs, if packed cell volume is equal, it means same volume of the blood is occupied by the red blood cells in both patients. But here, given RBC, individual RBC is larger, their individual RBC is smaller. It is just like all of them are like grapefruits, and these are like small lemons. So naturally, if grapefruits and lemons are having the same packed cell volume, then number of grapefruits will be less and lemons will be more. So what I wanted to tell you, that just knowing the packed cell volume is not enough. You should also know that in a specific patient, a given packed cell volume is having what? Red cell count. Here red cell count will be less. Here red cell count will be more, even though hematocrit is equal. Am I clear? No problem. It can also happen that you come across two patients, both of them have equal number of RBCs. Red blood cell count is equal. Look, another example. There are two friends here, right? Number of red blood cell is equal, but one has larger red blood cells and other has smaller red blood cells. This person has smaller red blood cell, another has larger red blood cells. For here, if number of the red blood cell is equal, then person with larger red blood cell will have more packed cell volume, and person with smaller red blood cell will have less packed cell volume. Do I need to explain it further, or you understand it? So what I wanted to put in your mind, that when you look at a person, he has low hematocrit or normal hematocrit, it is not enough. To have the real concept of his red blood system, we should not only know that in a given volume of blood, what is the packed volume, right, occupied by RBCs, we should also know per unit of the blood, what is the count of RBCs. Is that right? Any problem here? Claro? Okay. Now we go to the normal. We now go back and start working with the normal person. Now you know the concept of packed cell volume and you know the concept of red cell count. And now I want to give a concept of hemoglobin concentration. Is that right? Because they are interrelated but somewhat different concepts. Now what is the fine-tuning in the concept? Let me do it for you. let's suppose we have taken 1 unit of blood from a person, and out of that, this is his packed cell volume. Let's suppose normal person, it is 0.45. Normal person has a range, but let's suppose in this given normal person, packed cell volume is 0.45. And red cell count is, yes, 5 millions, yes, 5 millions per ml. Is that right? Now, I will draw the RBCs here, just 5 red blood cells here. I think I need to really. Okay, so it's a very simple diagram, right? This was a tube and plasma is up to here. It was 100 and here it was 45. Is that clear? Now, these are, of course, in such amount of blood, there are not 5 RBCs. Actually, I have drawn in the diagram 5 RBCs which are representative of all RBCs. For example, if it is 1 ml, then there should be 5 million RBCs. Then 1 RBC is representing 1 million red blood cells, right? Now look, within these RBCs, there is hemoglobin. I take 1 RBC and put it here. This is 1 red blood cell. I make a section of this red blood cell here, and I will show you the hemoglobin. Now, hemoglobin is present within these red blood cells. Every red blood cell has some hemoglobin. Is that right? Now, when hemoglobin is present over here, so naturally all these red blood cells are the bags of hemoglobin. Red blood cells do not have any nucleus. Now, this is hemoglobin. Now, actually, red blood cells are not 100% full of hemoglobin. This is very important. Red blood cells are not, red blood cell is a bag of hemoglobin, but this bag is not 100% full. About 1/3 of it is loaded with hemoglobin. Is that right? So it means, why normally a red blood cell fluid has only 1/3 of it full of hemoglobin? Because this is the maximum metabolic capacity of cells to make the hemoglobin in a given RBC. So usually when RBC synthesis is normal, the maximum amount of hemoglobin which can be packed during the erythropoiesis, the maximum amount of hemoglobin which can be packed in 1 red blood cell is about 1/3 of its volume. It means 1 RBC is 1/3 full of what? Hemoglobin. Is that right? Now we come back. Packed cell volume you know. Red cell count you also know. Is that right? Now I will repeat the things. In a given unit of blood, all volume occupied by the red blood cell once they are packed is packed cell volume or hematocrit. And in a given unit of blood, the total number of RBC is called red cell count. But we did not talk about hemoglobin. Every red blood cell is having hemoglobin. Sometimes we talk that in 1 unit of blood, what is the total percentage of hemoglobin? For example, if it is 100 ml blood, we took from patient up to here was 100 ml blood, then there were 45 ml volume occupied by RBCs. Hemoglobin is present within the red blood cells. Can hemoglobin be more than the total volume of red blood cells? No, of course not. So it means whatever is packed cell volume, hemoglobin has to be less than that. And I told you in a healthy person, when there is healthy normal, good erythropoietic process is going on, usually a normal red blood cell can be maximum packed with hemoglobin up to equal to its 33% of its total volume. Now, right? You are understanding it? Now, it is total 45 ml. If I say in a healthy person, you have taken 100 ml blood, out of 100 ml blood, packed cell volume is 45 and 1/3 of that is full of hemoglobin. What should be the amount of hemoglobin? 15 gram. Look, this, if I put all RBCs together, it become a bag of RBC. Is that right? If total bag of RBC is how much volume? 45. If I say this bag is 1/3 full, then what should be the amount of hemoglobin? Right? 33% of RBC, but 15% of the total blood. You are understanding? Total blood was how much? 100 ml. 45 ml was what? Packed cell volume. 45 ml packed cell volume was containing 1/3 amount of hemoglobin. So 45 ml was containing how much hemoglobin? 15 gram. So out of 100 ml there was only 15 gram what? Hemoglobin. So in a one amount of blood which was 100 unit, only 15 unit was hemoglobin. So we can say if out of 100, 15 is only hemoglobin. So what is the concentration of hemoglobin in blood? 15%. Right? So this is the concept of hemoglobin concentration in a healthy person. In males a little more and females a little less. But let's suppose 15%. Or simply we call it if 15 gram per 100 ml deciliter or 150 gram per liter. Is it difficult to understand? Clear? So three terms are clear now. That a patient come and you want to make some study that patient has anemia or not. What type of anemia is there? First of all, you must know what is the packed cell volume. Number two, you should know what is the red cell count. Number three, you should know what is the hemoglobin concentration. Sometimes what happens? That there are two patients, they have same red cell count. It is quite possible there are two patients. There is one patient, this is another patient, and both of them are having, there is packed cell volume, full blood. Here is packed cell volume. Is that right? Both of them are having same packed cell volume and both of them having same what size of RBCs and count of RBCs. Now, in both cases, packed cell volume is same. In both cases, RBC count is also same. But here RBCs are less juicy. They are under hemoglobinized. They are having less hemoglobin per RBC. And let's suppose their RBCs are very, very juicy. Yeah. They are like oranges. Very, very juicy here. Right? Well hemoglobinized RBCs. Now, packed cell volume is same. Red cell count is same. But do you think hemoglobin concentration can be same? No. So it means that is an independent variable. You should not know that number one, you should know in a given person what is the total volume of the blood occupied by red blood cell. Secondly, you should know in a given volume what is the number of RBCs. Then you should know what is the juiciness of RBC, mean how well or how poorly they are hemoglobinized. Is that right? So when we talk about this juiciness of RBCs, is that right? We are talking about content of Hemoglobin, right? So in all, it is quite possible that there are two patients, both of them have packed cell volume 0.4, both of them have red cell count 5 million per ml, but one has hemoglobin 15 gram, other has hemoglobin 12 gram. So in one case there is better hemoglobinization per RBC, in second case there is poor hemoglobinization per RBC. It means in first case hemoglobin was 15 gram, in second case hemoglobin was 12 grams. You are understanding it? So we should have three basic study when someone come to you and we start talking about RBCs and hemoglobin business. Number one, what is the packed cell volume? Number two, this packed cell volume is how well packed with what number of RBCs. Then what is the hemoglobin concentration given amount of blood, right? So now we will have a break. I hope you are clear about these three terms. These are three basic terms. Once you know these three basic concepts about a given patient, then you can derive these concepts, all these. I will talk about them after the break. Let's continue our discussion about red blood cells. So, and investigations. We have seen what is meant by packed cell volume, hemoglobin concentration and red cell count. Once you know these three basic values in a given patient, that for a given patient what are these three values, basic values, then you can derive what is the volume of one RBC. That is mean corpuscular volume. What is concept of mean corpuscular volume? The average volume of, mean volume of one red blood cell. Then mean corpuscular hemoglobin. What is the amount of hemoglobin in each RBC? And then mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. What is the concentration of hemoglobin in a given RBC? I will explain these things. But all these are derived concepts from first three. I will explain how. We go to the first initial readings and then we'll move forward. This was our patient. This is the total amount of blood. Here it was packed cell volume, and we said packed cell volume is how much? Yes, 0.45. And then in this person, of course, this is all, what is this? Red blood cells. So packed cell volume is occupied by certain number of red blood cell. So we also talked about red cell count. That was 5 millions per ml. Is that right? Then we talked about hemoglobin concentration. You remember? Now we said in this total unit of blood, packed cell volume was 0.45. Every ml was containing 5 million RBCs, and hemoglobin which was packed in these RBCs, that was making what percentage? 15 grams, 15%. 15%. So that was what? Hemoglobin concentration. That is in this case 15%. Is that right? If it is 1 liter blood, then it will be 150 grams. If it is 100 ml blood, then hemoglobin will be 15 grams. Is that right? Depending upon what is the total amount. Are you clear? These are our basic values. But now we want to develop a concept of mean corpuscular volume. This mean is not that mean which you talk about your friends. This mean is not mean RBCs. This is actually average. Average volume occupied by one cell. It is so easy to determine. if I say that you have these three values, you can make this value, you can derive this value. How? Mean corpuscular volume is the total volume divided by the total number. Is it difficult? It's so easy. That total volume occupied by the all RBCs divided by the number of RBCs will give you the volume occupied by one RBC. Is it difficult? So that is such an easy calculation. Mean corpuscular volume is total volume. What is total volume? Packed cell volume divided by red cell count. Do you think it really need to be understood? It's so easy, right? So actually, when we talk about packed cell volume, and if we know the number of red cell count, right? If total packed cell volume divided by total number of red blood cell, the result will be what? Mean corpuscular volume. Now, packed cell volume was how much? 0.45, and red cell count was 5 millions, right? When you correct the unit, it will become 90 into 10 to the raised power minus 15 liter. Oh my God. One RBC is very small. For example, if this is if it is 1 ml blood, listen carefully, if it is 1 ml blood, then total packed cell volume will be 0.45 ml. 0.45 ml divided by 5 millions, the result will be very large or very small? Very small. So it will become 90 into 10 to the raised power minus 15 liters. You know, you talk about liter, then you talk about deciliter, then you talk about milliliter, then you talk about small. It is so small, the special term which is used is, for this situation, femtoliter. As there are milliliter, there are femtoliter. So what we say that mean corpuscular volume is approximately 90 femtoliter. What is this? This is the volume of 1 RBC. How did we get it? Packed cell volume or hematocrit divided by number of RBCs. You get the volume per RBC. Is it difficult? No. So it is very easy. There are 45 divided by 5 is somewhere around 9. But they correct all the units on those sides, the end result will be 90. So if next time someone asks you, in a normal healthy person, packed cell volume is 0.45. Red cell count is 5 million per ml. Hemoglobin is 15%. And what is MCV? MCV means volume of 1 RBC. That should be around 90 femtoliters. Is that right? Okay. Then someone asks, okay, 90 is the volume of 1 RBC. I'm talking about this RBC. Okay, this specific RBC is 90 femtoliter. Is that right? This is the volume of this RBC. Now another man comes. He said, no, I'm not interested in volume. I want to know what is the amount of hemoglobin in every RBC in this case. In this specific patient, what is the amount of hemoglobin per RBC? Again, if you have the basic values, you can derive it. You put, what you will put? If you want to know mean corpuscular hemoglobin, hemoglobin present in one corpuscle. Now we are talking about the amount of hemoglobin. We are not talking about the volume of red blood cells. We have already knew that a healthy RBC has, what is the volume of healthy RBC? 90 femtoliters. Now we want to know it a healthy RBC, what is the amount of hemoglobin? You say, okay, let's calculate it. It's very easy. Total amount of hemoglobin divided by the number of RBCs. Is it difficult? It's easy. And you already know total amount of hemoglobin is 15%. If it is 100 ml, then you know it is 15 gram. If it is 1 ml, then it is, of course, less. So let's suppose this is what? Total hemoglobin. Total hemoglobin in a given volume, total hemoglobin, that is of course hemoglobin concentration divided by red cell count, and you will get amount of hemoglobin per RBC. Is it difficult? Claro? Clear? Okay. So what you will do, hemoglobin is 15 suppose percent, red cell is, oh my god, 5 millions. Do you think hemoglobin, if let's suppose if we have 100 ml blood, in 100 ml blood hemoglobin is only 15 grams. In 100 ml of the blood hemoglobin is only 15 gram, and this 15 gram is divided by how many millions? In 1 ml there are 5 millions, in 100 ml there are 500 millions. When you will divide 15 gram by 500 millions of RBCs, you will get the hemoglobin per RBC. That will be a large amount in kilograms or very small units. Very small unit, that is in picograms. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. So actually it is 30 picogram. Now from original 3 values we are deriving the red cell indices. What are red cell indices? Values with 1 RBC, which are derived units. Mean corpuscular volume is the volume of 1 RBC. How did you get it? Total volume, hematocrit or packed cell volume divided by total number. Then we came to mean corpuscular hemoglobin. Total hemoglobin divided by number of RBCs. MCV is normally how much? About 90 femtoliter. And MCH is how much? 30 picogram. Is it clear? Now someone says, okay, this is the volume of RBC, this is the hemoglobin present in each RBC. He says, can you derive what is the hemoglobin concentration per RBC? Now, amount of hemoglobin per RBC is different. Concentration of hemoglobin per RBC is slightly different concept. Let me tell you. Let's suppose this is a bag. This is a bag of 90 units. Total capacity is 90 units. And how much hemoglobin it has? 30 units. Do you think it's 100% full, 50% full, or how much full? If you have a bag, RBC bag, the volume of bag, which is maximum volume, is how much? 90 units. And it is full how much? 30 units. Is that right? So what do you think hemoglobin concentration in this bag, which has a capacity of 90 and loaded with 30 units, what is the percentage of loading? 33%. It's 1/3 full, because we can imagine if it was 100, then it should be 33. I think it's basic mathematics, primary school. Is that right? So this concept that what is the volume of 1 RBC, what is the amount of hemoglobin per RBC, and what is the degree of hemoglobinization, hemoglobin concentration, that is mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin, yes, concentration. And this mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration can be determined by total hemoglobin, yes, that is hemoglobin concentration, by total volume. Look now please carefully. When we'll talk about hemoglobin, amount of hemoglobin per RBC, then total hemoglobin divided by number of red blood cells. When we talk about the concentration of hemoglobin in a given RBC, total hemoglobin is now not divided by the number of RBC, total hemoglobin is divided by total volume of the RBC. So that we know what is the degree of filling of RBC volume by the hemoglobin. What is the degree of hemoglobinization, right? So naturally in this case, what is the total hemoglobin? 15. What is the total volume? 0.45. When you will correct everything, it will become how much? 33%. Am I clear? Any problem into this? So next time when you are doing some patient's study on the red blood cells, first of all you should look in the blood report what is the packed hematocrit. That will give you packed cell volume. You must know what is the hemoglobin percentage concentration. That is the, now packed cell volume is the total volume by all the RBCs in a given amount of blood. This is the total hemoglobin per unit of blood. This is the total number of RBCs in a unit of blood. But when you come to the derived values, these are called red cell indices. Mean corpuscular volume is volume of one RBC. So total volume divided by red cell count. Total volume divided by red cell count. Mean corpuscular volume, mean corpuscular hemoglobin. Total hemoglobin divided by red cell count. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. Total hemoglobin divided by total volume. Am I clear? Now let me make it even more clear, because now I will correlate all these concepts. We have gone up to this. Is that right? I will correlate all these concepts basically with microcytic, normocytic, macrocytic and normochromic, hypochromic and hyperchromic cells. Now we'll put these figures in terms in context of these terms, right? Let's come and discuss it separately. I will go back to my studies. We'll just rapidly review what we have done. We said we have a patient with the blood and his packed cell volume was how much? Rapidly, it's a healthy, suppose as far as blood findings are, they are normal. So packed cell volume is 0.45. Red cell count is 5 millions per ml. And what was the third thing? Hemoglobin concentration was 15%. Is that right? Then we made the derivatives for one RBC. I will draw that single RBC here, right? This is that single RBC which we were talking about, right? Now this single RBC, I've made a section of that, right? Normally you know the size of the RBC is about 7.5 microns, but I'm not talking about the size of the disc of RBC. I'm talking about, first of all, the volume occupied by one RBC. Now you will tell me the values. Mean corpuscular volume, what was the normal in that person? 90 femtoliter. Is that right? Mean corpuscular hemoglobin, how much was that? 30 picogram. We have already derived. Is that right? The same person. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, how much was that? 33%. The degree of juiciness is 33%. Is that right? I'm talking about red blood cell juice, hemoglobin, right? You are laughing in a very suspicious way. Okay, now listen. Now, there is one situation. Red cell volume is more and it is overfilled or underfilled. It is 33% full. It is a big bag with less filling. For example, if 90 unit of volume is full of 90 picogram, RBC will be full. And if you put so much hemoglobin in one RBC artificially, RBC will become globular. You are understanding? You can imagine females have, Cartera bags. If they are underfilled, they are pressed, but they are overfilled, they become like globular. Same is true about RBCs. RBCs are normally 100% full or 33% full of hemoglobin. 33%. So now normal filling of RBC is 33%. It means that their total volume is more and amount of hemoglobin is far less. Due to that reason, it cannot be a swollen cell. It is rather bigger volume with underfilled, so it is biconcave disc. Now, I'm showing here normal hemoglobinization. Now what happens, because red blood cells are passing through narrow capillaries, they are pressed from many angles. So because they fold on each other, usually hemoglobin in the center is less and on the sides is more. You understand it? Now this is the volume of RBC shown, and what is this inside? Amount of hemoglobin shown in this diagram. This is the volume I'm showing, and this is what I'm showing, amount of hemoglobin. Now, when such red blood cell is seen under the microscope, if you make a blood film and look at such red blood cell, do you think it is evenly full? No, it is more full on the periphery and less full in center. So hemoglobin is which color?
Red.
Thank you for knowing it. He knows that it is red color. Good. He knows that hemoglobin is red colored, and he also knows hemoglobin is more on the periphery of the blood and less in the center. So red color will be more on the periphery or more in the center? Periphery. That is why normal red blood cells are, yes, having central paler. Why they are centrally pale and more pink on the side? Because volume is more and hemoglobin is less. About 1/3 of the red blood cell is full of hemoglobin. Due to this reason, because it twists and turns into vessels, especially small capillaries, so hemoglobin goes more on the periphery and less in the center. So this is the normal situation. The normal red blood cell, if we look from the top, this is red blood cell, you will see what is that? Its degree of hemoglobinization. So central 1/3 is, the central 1/3 is pale as compared to the outer 2/3. Is that right? This is the normal shade of red blood cell. If it is normally filled, how much should be the pallor? Central 1/3 area. Is that right? Now, such red blood cell is said to be of normal color. And when it is normal color, we call it normochromic. What we call it, this red blood cell? Normochromic. And so, this red blood cell, which is having this volume, this amount of hemoglobin, and this is the hemoglobin concentration, its appearance is 1/3 pallor. This is of normal volume and normal degree of hemoglobinization. When it is normal volume, normal size, we say it is normocytic. And when it is normal color, due to normal degree of hemoglobinization, we say it is normochromic. So this red blood cell is what you will call it? Yes, normocytic, normochromic. So next time, if you look at the blood report and it is written that it is normocytic, normochromic blood film in the RBC, it means volume of the RBC is normal and degree of hemoglobinization is normal. Or you can say MCV is normal and MCHC is normal. Any problem here? Now, let's make some variations from here. Due to some disease processes, there can be certain variations. Here I am putting normal sized 3 RBCs. These are normal sized. Three RBCs. Right? So all of them are normocytic. For example, in all of them, mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter. Is that right? Mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter. This is from another patient and mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter. So all of them are normocytic, right? Here hemoglobin per RBC is, mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram. Then mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration will be, yes, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration will be 33%. So how would you comment on this RBC? Normochromic? Normochromic? Normocytic. Now we take RBC from another person. Here mean corpuscular volume is same as above, but mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 15 picogram and mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is how much? Okay, let's put it 20 picogram. Now look, what is the difference in first and the second? Both of them have same volume, but it has 30 picogram hemoglobin and this has 20 picograms. So the lower one is underfilled. Is that right? It was how much filled? 33%. It is how much filled? If it is 20, it is 22% almost. Is that right? 23% or 22%. It is 22% MCHC. Now, this is more juicy as compared to upper or less juicy? Less juicy. So it will be more pink or less pink? Less pink. Even though both of them have same size, but here juice was more, here juice is less. Juice means hemoglobin here. Let me remind you. Right? Now, because it is underfilled, here you will see the degree of pallor will be increased or decreased in the center? Increased. No, look. Total amount of hemoglobin here it is less. It was 33% hemoglobinized. It is almost 20% or 22% hemoglobinized. So it has less hemoglobin. So more hemoglobin will go in the periphery and as compared to the upper it will have very little in the center. So central pallor will become larger. Are you understanding? Right? So it will look like this. As compared to the upper one. You are understanding? It is pink in very periphery. Here it is pink in larger periphery. So when you will look at it, when you look at upper RBC and then lower RBC, both of them look of the same size. It is normocytic, this is also normocytic. But it is normochromic, it is hypochromic. Its color is less. What is it? It is hypochromic. So I will write here. The upper one was what? Normocytic and normochromic. Is that right? The upper one. And what is this? Yes, normocytic and hypochromic. RBC. Is that clear? Now we imagine another RBC in which mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter. It is, I am telling hypothetically, because normally RBC cannot be overfilled. But hypothetically, we talk about this RBC. Mean corpuscular volume is, you like the hypothetical things or not? Young men like too much, yes I know. Mean corpuscular volume is 90%, 90 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is, let's suppose, 45 picogram. What is the mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, my friends? 50%. Yeah. It is over juicy. It will got too much juice. So maybe it is so much rich in, what is this? Hemoglobin, that even in the center, even though here also there is more hemoglobin on the sides, but even center is very well filled. So you may not find there is any, you may find central pallor is very, very small or almost disappears. So we'll call this cell normocytic, yes, hyperchromic. Normocytic, yes, hyperchromic. So by this concept, what I wanted to tell you, that whenever we talk about mean corpuscular volume, we are talking about that it is normocytic or not. And whenever we are talking about MCHC, we are talking about is it normochromic or not. Is that right? Now there is one thing. Normally doctors say that normal value of mean corpuscular volume should be 90 femtoliter plus negative 8. What does it mean? Okay, you put it plus negative 10. It is a normal, of course, femtoliter. What does it mean? That a normal RBC can be maximum 90 plus 10 or 90 minus 10. So if RBC is larger, rather than 90 femtoliter, it is 95 femtoliter, 98 femtoliter, it is still normal. Or if it is slightly smaller than the 90, for example, your red blood cell is 86 femtoliter, it is still normal. But they say when it is more than, when it is more than 100 femtoliter, take it as macrocytic cell, macrocytosis, when your RBCs are larger than, when your mean corpuscular volume is more than 100. Or if in your patient, if RBCs are having mean corpuscular volume less than 80 femtoliter, we say there is microcytosis. So when we say your patient is displaying microcytosis, it means mean corpuscular volume is less than 80. Or if you look at a report and mean corpuscular volume is 60, of course there is microcytosis. You look at another blood report and mean corpuscular volume, MCV, is 110, patient has macrocytosis. Is that clear? Now, let's talk about microcytosis. Of course, these are smaller RBCs or larger? These are smaller. Now look, what really happens here, mean corpuscular volume is suppose 50 femtoliter, 60 femtoliter. If this RBC has mean corpuscular volume of how much? 60 femtoliter. It is of course microcytic. And hemoglobin is, amount of hemoglobin, mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 20 picogram. It means volume is reduced as well as amount of hemoglobin is reduced. But what is the mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration? Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration 33%. So juiciness is okay. It's a smaller orange, the smaller amount of juice, but size is reduced in proportion with the juice, in the same proportion. So what we will say that it is, even though microcytic, but it is normochromic. So even the smaller, but still in smaller, so it is, what is it? It is microcytic normochromic. Is that right? Because MCV is less than normal, but MCHC is normal. Am I clear? I'm surprised. You are really understanding it? All of you? Great. I'm dealing with very intelligent bunch of doctors. Okay. Now this is another microcyte, because here I say it is mean corpuscular volume is again 60 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin here is 15 picogram. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 25%. It is under hemoglobinized or over? Under hemoglobinized. So what does it mean? Even though RBC is small, but hemoglobin is too small. So it is it is very less juicy. Not only it is small, even juice is also too less. So it will become like this. And so what is it now? Microcytic hypochromic. What is it? It was, upper one was microcytic normochromic. This is microcytic, yes, hypochromic. Now we imagine another situation. There is an RBC. When it was produced, it was absolutely normal. When this RBC was produced by the bone marrow, it was absolutely normal. But its membrane had some structural defect. And when this RBC was twisting and turning through narrow capillaries, some of its membrane was lost. So as it passes through circulation, progressively its membrane keep on losing, its volume will keep on reducing. Its volume will keep on reducing. So this is an RBC which was originally mean corpuscular volume was originally 90 femtoliter, but because it has some defect in its membrane structure, this disease is called spherocytosis. What happens in spherocytosis, that membranes, I will explain in detail later, for a while you just trust me, that what happens in spherocytosis, that RBC's membranes are lost when they are passing through narrow capillaries. Membrane structure is not properly anchored with the substance of RBCs. Those proteins which make a network and support the membrane, those proteins are defective. Just imagine there's a lady who is recently married, they put a lot of ropa, lot of, what is that, dress, extra dress, and elegantly walk, right? But just imagine if she's passing through narrow tunnel, then progressively piece of the dress is lost. In the end, what will happen? She is trying to hide herself in a very small dress. She will become spherical. Same happens with the RBC. Originally, it is having a lot of extra membrane. You are understanding? But when this RBC is passing through the different capillaries, losing its membrane like equal losing the pieces of dress and progressively shrinking, trying to adjust in a larger lady in a smaller dress, what will happen? It will become something like circular, not elegant. Is that right? Same thing happened with RBC. That RBC which was originally like this, normal shape, and let's suppose its hemoglobin was also, what was this? Normal amount. As this RBC was passing through the different capillaries, it lost the membrane but did not lose the hemoglobin. So eventually mean corpuscular volume is reduced. Rather than mean corpuscular volume of 90, eventually it becomes 60 femtoliter. But mean corpuscular hemoglobin remained the same. What was original? Original was mean corpuscular volume was, what was the original mean corpuscular volume? 90. What was mean corpuscular hemoglobin normal? Yes? Israel, please magnify it when I'm writing it. 30. Right? And what was normal mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration? 33%. Is that right? Now, after traveling through capillaries, as it lost its membrane, mean corpuscular volume rather than 90 became 60. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin, which was originally 30, is still 30 picogram. But mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 50%. So it becomes under hemoglobinized or over hemoglobinized? It is over hemoglobinized. So what will happen? That even in the center, when hemoglobin will become too much, it swell up. And from the sides, membrane has been removed. So it becomes almost a what? Sphere. You are understanding? It becomes almost a sphere. Do you think you will find any central pallor there? It's like a spherical RBC because lost the membrane and hemoglobin is normal but membrane is less than normal, so it becomes spherical structure. Is that right? So when you look at this RBC, will you find central pallor? No. So when you look this RBC from the top, let's compare all these. There's one RBC here, there's another RBC here, this is another RBC here. In this RBC, central pallor is 1/3. What is it? 1/3. It is normochromic. Central pallor is very large. What is this? This RBC is hypochromic. And here you don't see any central pallor. What is this? Hyperchromic. So what is this RBC? Microcytic hyperchromic. What is this RBC? Microcytic hyperchromic. Now we come to another side and discuss. These are larger RBCs. These are 3 RBCs which are larger than normal. It means their mean corpuscular volume is, yes, I'll put it here. Mean corpuscular volume is, suppose 120 what? Femtoliter. So it is macrocytic. Here also mean corpuscular volume is 120 femtoliter. Here mean corpuscular volume is also 120 femtoliter. So all these 3 RBCs are macrocyte. But we talk about hemoglobin. Here mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 40 picogram. Here mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram. Here mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 60 picogram. It means here in first case where MCV is 120 and MCH is 40, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 33%. In second case, mean corpuscular volume is 120, mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30, so mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 25%. And here mean corpuscular volume is 120 and mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 60, so mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 50%. So all of them are macrocyte. This is macrocyte with normal degree of hemoglobinization. With normal degree of hemoglobinization. So it will have central pallor for how much? 1/3. So what is this RBC? You will tell me now. Macrocytic. Yeah, macrocytic normochromic. Now you will tell me about this red blood cell. That this red blood cell is under hemoglobinized. So what will be it? What is that? Macrocytic hypochromic. That's great. Hypochromic. And what about this RBC? It is over hemoglobinized. What is it? Macrocytic hyperchromic. Even though we don't come across these cells, but this is just hypothetically to tell how to develop a concept related with these terms. Hyperchromic. Am I really clear to all of you? Okay, I will make a test to you now. And I will see if you have really understood or not. If you have really understood, then we'll stop the lecture. Let's suppose I put different reports here, blood reports. Report number 1, mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter, mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 33%. What is your conclusion? Yes? Normocytic, normochromic, good. RBCs. We cannot tell it is anemia or not. Because for anemia, we have to see total hemoglobin is normal or less. If we have to determine it is anemia, then total hemoglobin should be less than normal values, and total packed cell volume should be less than normal. But for a while we can say with these three figures we can only tell this red blood cell is normocytic, normochromic. Now I will give you the values and you have to tell me rapidly. Mean corpuscular volume is 120 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 40 picogram, and mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 33%. What is that? Macrocytic? Very good. Macrocytic? Normochromic. Okay, let's put one more value. Mean corpuscular volume is 60 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 50%. What is it? Yes, microcytic hypochromic. Microcytic. You have done how many mistakes? Hyper? Okay, hyperchromic. You have done how many mistakes? No mistake up to now. Okay, now we see what happened. There is another report come to you. Mean corpuscular volume is 120 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram, and mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 25%. What is it? Macrocytic hypochromic. Good. And if we come to the, we'll make total 6 studies. If you can do all of them, I'll be really impressed by you. There's another patient, mean corpuscular volume. Now you know mentally you are tuned because you are now doctor. You are thinking, according to this result, I can make some judgment. Okay, mean corpuscular volume is 60 femtoliter. What is your judgment now? Microcytic. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 15 picogram. What is your judgment now? It is a small RBC with small amount of hemoglobin. But what is the ratio? MCHC. What is that? 25%. So what is your judgment, final judgment, by combining this information? This patient has problem microcytosis or microcytic hypochromic situation. Hypochromic. Is that right? Now we'll put, and you have to rapidly tell me. Mean corpuscular volume is 90 femtoliter. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin is 30 picogram. Mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration is 33%. What is the situation? Rapido. Normocytic, normochromic. Excellent. You have done all of them perfectly. Okay. So at least clap for yourself. Yes, strongly. Yes, very good. Excellent. Right? Now we do the last thing, which I did not discuss. I have discussed all these things. We have not discussed red cell distribution width, but we have talked about microcytosis, normocytic, macrocytic, normochromic, hypochromic, hyperchromic. Can you integrate all this information, how it is linked with each other? In the end, red cell distributive width is actually a concept related with variation in the size of red blood cells. Sometimes what happen, for example, a patient has microcytic RBCs and you give him blood transfusion of normal blood. So normal blood transfusion is containing normocytic cells and previously cells were microcytic. So he will have two types of RBCs, microcyte as well as normocyte. So what will happen there? That the variation in the size of RBC has significantly widened. Variation in the size of the RBC has been significantly widened. Let me explain, you look confused. Okay, I will make a distribution curve. Most of the distribution curve are bell-shaped in the nature. Let me tell you, we talk about the colors of people. If you go to some Asian country, All of them have almost which color? Somewhat yellow color. Okay, you go to China, okay, you go to India, they are somewhat yellowish brown color. In most of the people, suppose here you put yellow brown color, here you put very white, and here you put very black. In Indian population, is that right? The people who are very brownish color, most of their percentage is very high. Most of the people fall into this category. Those people which are very light color, they are very less. And people who are very dark color, they are very less. Is that right? This is normal curve of the distribution of color in this population. Now you go to another population where black and white people are living in a mixed population. Now you put it here a relatively white color, relatively black color, but curve will become somewhat like this. You know why? In the white there will be very, very white, average white and less white people, and within the black there will be less black, black and very black people. So total it has widened or shrunken? Widened. Now you imagine RBCs. In a healthy person, most of the RBCs are normocytic. We put here percentage of number of RBCs, and here we put the MCV. Here we put MCV, normal MCV is 90 femtoliter. Most of the RBCs are around 90 femtoliter. In a healthy person, RBCs which are very small are very less, and RBCs which are very large are very less. But let's suppose person has microcytosis, microcytic situation. Then here it will be 60 femtoliter. So originally he has most of the RBCs 60 femtoliter, very few RBCs less than 60, very few more than 60. But when you put blood transfusion, the new population of RBCs come with 90 femtoliter. Is that right? And there are very few which are near to the 60 and very few which are near to the 100. You are understanding? But now because there are two types of size of the RBC, microcytic and normocytic, the variation in distribution of their width of distributive curve has been widened. Here the width of distributive curve is less. Is that right? When RBCs vary in size from each other, we say there is an isocytosis. What is there? An isocytosis. Iso means same. Isocytosis means same size. An isocytosis means RBCs are not having the same size. So if someone has this very wide, it means some RBCs are very small and some are very large. So we say he is having which problem? An isocytosis. Or simply in modern terms, we say patient has increased red cell distributive width. Because these new automated counters, when you put the patient blood and automatically machine counts the red cell number, red cell size, red cell per hemoglobin, so many results machine generates. Modern machines also generate this curve concept. If your RBCs, most of the RBCs are very near to the same size, curve will have small width. If most of the RBCs, but RBCs are varying too much, curve will become wide. And really it becomes too wide when you have two different types of RBCs population with different sizes. You may have microcytic and normocytic. If you have come across another patient, sometimes you come across another patient, he has microcytic going down, then this curve disappear. This is on average 60 and this is on average 120. What is his problem? He has double RBCs, some RBCs with 60 femtoliter average and some are 120. He has microcytic and macrocytic. Some RBCs are too small. There is a full group of RBCs which are too small. The full group of RBCs are too large. Such are, again, what is there? Increased width of, yes, what? Red cell distributive width has been increased, right? Or we say that he has polymorphic RBCs, polymorphic or dimorphic RBC. Morpho means shape. size and dimorphic. This type of situation can be seen when you have double anemia. For example, a patient who has iron deficiency anemia as well as B12 deficiency anemia. Iron deficiency anemia make the RBCs which are very microcytic, and B12 deficiency make the RBCs which are very large. So in this patient, what will happen? There will be microcytosis as well as there will be macrocytosis, and distributive widths will be very wide. Is this concept clear? No problem here. So can you talk about all these terms in an intelligent way? Okay, class dismissed.